Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. So hello, everybody. My name's Dave. Please understand I have a comedy job title, right? Because I am, check me out, right? I am Chief Envisioning Officer. Come on, I work in IT. Job titles are all I've got pretty much, right? I chose this job title for a reason, because one of the things that you'll well know that the IT industry tends to do is we love to talk about the technology and the products that we make. But what we don't do enough of is not talk about the technology, but instead talk about the human beings that use it. And so my job is essentially to project out into the future, try and understand how will human beings want to live, work, and play. Because I think if we know what the humans are going to do, we can be a lot more mindful about the kind of technology they're going to require. So understand that, and essentially my job is about the future of humanity, right? And I just figured if I'm going to have a job that's about the future of humanity, I demand a job title with a certain degree of pomposity. Think you'll see I've achieved that? I also have to give you some background to me. I stand in front of you, an individual who's dedicated his entire career to the world of IT. I spent 25 years inside the second smallest rooms in your organizations. These are the rooms with no natural daylight, just the whirring of the fans, the blinking of the LEDs to keep me company. For my day job, I have chosen to work for one of the world's largest technology companies. I have gone to the extremes of personal grooming to grow a beard and a ponytail. That's how committed I am. And guess what? I also quite like Star Trek, man. Right? This is my 8th birthday party. It's my mum and my Auntie Mabel. Stick with me, I'll make it relevant. Thing is, when I was a kid, Star Trek taught me this amazing lesson about technology, that technology is supposed to be a force for good in our lives. It's this thing that enables human beings to rise up and achieve more than they could do on their own. This is the point of technology. This is the reason why I chose a career in IT, and it's the reason why I choose to do what I do every single day. But my problem is those 25 years in bloody IT. Because I look around at how we all use technology today, and I don't see this liberating force. I see a prison. I see something that constrains how we think, controls how we work, and quite frankly, I refuse to accept that as our future. So a few years ago, I set out on a journey to try and set the balance straight, to try and reset our relationship with technology. I wrote a book called Business Reimagined, which is basically about how the way we work today does not work because we use technology to replicate old-fashioned ways of working. We still work like we're Victorians. We just use technology to make those old Victorian working practices a bit better or a bit quicker or a bit cheaper. This was not the gift of technology. I followed up with another book called The Rise of the Humans, and this is about our personal relationship with technology and how it's preventing us from getting where we need to be, and about the role of data and algorithms and what they're going to do for us. Now, there's a couple of things you need to know about these books. Number one, I'm a cheap date, so if you'd like a copy of these books, if you have a Kindle, you can download them for free on Amazon, or if you don't have a Kindle, just tweet me and I'll send you a download code. Secondly, and I'm always kind of embarrassed to have to admit this in public, but there was a time in my past, there was a time in my life where I was hard up for money, and I did some things that I was not terribly proud of. I'm afraid to say that for a period of my life, I was a management consultant. There, I've said it. As a result of being a management consultant, you will find no answers in these books because I was a damn good consultant. These books are a provocation. They just merely want to poke you to try and reset your relationship with technology, to change the way you think about technology, not just for you, but for your customers and the people who work in your organization, because I think the world of technology is changing around us. I think we live in the most incredible times. Technology does these amazing things in our lives, and we often fail to take it for granted. I can think of no better way to sum up the change, the place that we're at right now, than to use this graph. This is my favorite graph in the entire world of graphs. Because this graph shows the number of mentions of the phrase exponential growth over the last 6 decades. Right? I can't do better than that. But the problem is, we still think technology's new. We talk about digital and we talk about IT like they're separate in our lives somehow. But they're not separate in our lives. And I've got 2 sort of arguments, so in fact 3 arguments I want to put to you that hopefully will lead us towards the death of the term digital, because we need to move on because something far bigger is coming. So my exhibit A, if you will, is just how far we've come when it comes to digital adoption. Now, I want you to think for a moment. I could put up any number of slides that show the penetration rates of digital technology in a modern society. Does any of you know anybody between the age of 8 and 80 who does not use a mobile phone or a computer for their work or their pleasure? Does anybody know anybody who does that? A couple of you, three of you out of what, 200 people. This is Exhibit A. We're now living in a world where technology supports pretty much all of us in everything that we do. I give you Exhibit B, the iPotty. The fact that we live in a world where this is a feasible product. I have a kid, I've been through toilet training. There would be a point in toilet training where I thought that would have been a good thing for us to try. The fact that this exists is example, is all of the evidence you need to know that we are done with digital. It's just part of our everyday, normal lives. Now, they're both bits of fun. The bit I really want you to consider, the bit I really want you to think about, is that we're entering into the third computer age. Now, I get that's a bit geeky. There's only going to be me and another few freaks in the audience who think this is cool. But I want you to think about these things. They're really important. So we started in a world of analog computers. This is a world sort of personified by Charles Babbage in the mid-19th century, who created the first analog computer. He designed it, right? Took the Science Museum until 2006 to finish that machine. It was a series of cogs that could add numbers together. Then we're in the era that we live today. This is the second computer age. This is the age of the microprocessor, the thing that's in your pocket, the thing that's on your lap or in your desk. And this technology's been brilliant. This technology has transformed the way we work and the way we live. However, all we have chosen to do with this technology is replicate those old ways of working. The way that you think about your customers, the way that you think about your organizational structure, the way that you think about the processes that run your organization, these are all things that were invented in the 19th century, way before technology was conceived. And all we do today is we use that old-fashioned working practices. We get today's technology and we make those old-fashioned working practices a bit quicker or a bit cheaper. This can no longer be the case. Because today's computers are absolutely stupid. Not just a bit stupid, I'm talking absolutely thick as, right? In order for a computer to do anything today, I have to give it really, really explicit instructions. Now, if you could humor me, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine a door, and the door is shut. Could be your front door, it could be your bedroom door, it doesn't matter, but the door is shut, and I want you to go up to that door and I want you to open that door. And I'm sure in your minds, as you walk to the door, you put your hand on the handle, you turn the handle, you open the door, and you walk through. And when you've walked through, you may shut the door behind you. That's because you're a human being. You can anticipate the ambiguity of different doors. I know sometimes they put little signs on and we get that bit wrong, but mostly you walk up to it and you go through the door. What do you think happens when I ask a computer to walk through a closed door? What does it do? It walks right through the door, doesn't open it, just smashes it right through because it's stupid. I didn't tell it there was a handle. I didn't tell it that it had to turn the handle. I just told it to walk through the door. This is the old world of the second computer age. We are moving into the third computer age where everything changes. Because in the third computer age, this is not an era of programs. This is not an era of microprocessors. This is an era of artificial intelligence, machine learning. The first fundamental change in the third computer age is simply this. In the third computer age, I no longer program computers. They learn for themselves. They learn. I teach them things. Here's a great example of the kind of power of when you teach computers things rather than program them. So this is something that's available today. You can try this at home. We have created the world's first speech-to-speech language translator. It's actually been available for a couple of years. Microsoft have demonstrated it. They had a gentleman speaking German connected to a lady speaking English, connected via Skype. It's powered by Bing. Gentleman speaks German. Lady hears English. Lady speaks English. Gentleman hears German. Real time. No human being involved. Just an amazing bit of technology. Now think about the transformational nature of that kind of solution. It changes our world. My son is 10 years old. On the basis of this technology, do I bother to get him to learn a foreign language at school? Because by the time he enters his world of work, it will be a redundant skill. No, I get that's provocative. I get there are lots of reasons why we learn foreign languages. And of course, my son, he'll learn 1 or 2 languages at school, just like everybody else. But as a result of this kind of technology, the power of this kind of technology, when he emerges from his education, he will be able to travel the world. He'll be able to speak another 152 languages fluently. He will be able to communicate with the locals as if he were a local, fundamentally changing his cultural experience, fundamentally changing his job prospects. This is the power of technology that learns. Now, if you want to know how it works, here's a lovely example. And what this does is this shows you the difference between teaching somebody, giving them the instructions, and them learning for themselves. And we do it every single day. There was some lovely research done back in the late 90s by a researcher in Cambridge University. It basically says, if you speak English, as long as I keep the first and last characters of the word in the right place, I can mix up all the other characters. I can even misspell words, and you'll still be able to read the text. Is that true? Can you read the text? Yeah, of course you can. So this is the difference between learning and teaching. Because in order to get you here, you've done something really curious. When you were at school, you were taught language. You were given the rules of language. You were given the logic of language. You were taught things like I before E except after C. But what they never told you is that there are 923 exceptions to the I before E rule. There are more exceptions to the I before E rule than there are to the bloody rule itself. Language isn't logical, it doesn't follow rules, it follows patterns. And we innately know this as human beings because from the day we learn to read until the day we die, we create, curate, and tend to our own personal pattern of language. Every time you read something, you're making your own personal pattern of language just slightly better. It's exactly how algorithms work. It's exactly how machine learning works. The second reason why this is a great example, because it shows you the limitation of machine learning. What do you think happens when I show this slide to someone who's just beginning to learn to speak English? Or if I'd shown it to my son, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago when he was just forming his own language skills? They can't read it because they haven't established enough of the pattern. So this difference between teaching and learning is fundamental. It changes the capability of what technology can provide us. But then the second piece of the third digital age kicks in. We're used to computers, analog and digital, being a very finite world of binary. It's a 1 or a 0. It's a yes or a no. This is not the third age of computing. The third age of computing is all about maybe. It's a world of probability. When you use a search engine, you are presented with an answer that is the most likely answer in the least amount of time. When we give you an answer to your query, we don't say, I'm 100% certain that that's what you're looking for. We say, I'm pretty confident, I'm not sure, but I think that might be the answer. That world of probability defines all of the things that we're going to do. It creates ambiguity. We can no longer rely explicitly on what the technology tells us. We have to start to use it to infer our human intuition. And it's this blend of humans and machine that actually becomes really powerful. And we can start to do some incredible things with it. Here's an example that we've done recently. We did some work with the Tate Gallery in London. Basically, they run this brilliant competition every year called the IK Prize. And what they do is they challenge the world of technology to do something innovative for the world of art once a year. And this year's winner was a startup from Italy called Fabrica, who created this wonderful, wonderful thing. And what they did is, the Tate has this problem where, like many museums, it has a huge number of artifacts in its archive that never see the light of day. They have 70,000 pieces of artwork in their archive. Now, if you're the Tate, you can't show them all at once. There's no single human curator who could hold all of those images in their brain at once. So a lot of the value, a lot of the treasure of the Tate lies hidden every single day. So the solution was to use artificial intelligence to bring that archive to light. And what the team did is something brilliant. They took images from the Reuters photo image stream. So think of hundreds of photographers around the world capturing life events, things going on around the world, and publishing them to a live stream that people can subscribe to. It's where newspapers get their pictures from. And then starting to analyze those pictures and correlate those pictures to images in the Tate's archive. And what was interesting is the way in which that was done. Because we did it to start with on some fairly basic things. Of course, there's a whole bunch of metadata about the photos. I know where in the world it is. I know who's in the photo. I know what the picture's about. And similarly for the paintings, I know who painted them, when they were painted. But then the artificial intelligence comes in. And first of all, we start doing curious things. We start looking at the composition of the picture. We start looking at the colors that are used in the picture, the angles, but then best of all, we start looking at the human intent of the pictures. We start looking at not only do I know if there's a human in the picture or not, I can make a guess at what age that human is. I know what gender that human is. I even know their emotional state. This is an algorithm doing all of this. And based on that information, I can bring out this rich human emotion and match that in images from the Tate's archive. All of a sudden, I have a digital curator that is exposing new artwork. Now, the point of this example is twofold. Number one, this is not to say that we're going to replace all of the curators in museums with algorithms. That would be silly. But it does show you that we can use technology to expose technology to create a better experience for people, for art lovers in this. And the second thing is, look at what we've done. We've used a whole bunch of emotional intent to surface that. A machine is interpreting human emotion. This is a big deal, guys, because it changes what we can do when it comes to looking for our customers. But there are some challenges inherent with this approach. One of the things we have to remember, in a world where the computers learn from us rather than be taught by rules, we have to be mindful about what we teach them. We have to think about it. Every algorithm that we use is essentially a reflection of our own society. Every ad that you see in your search engine, in your browser, you have had some part to play in the placement of that ad. Every time, if you use predictive text on your smartphones, every word you see predicted as the next word, you have had some part in making that next word become the suggestion. My son will likely choose his lifelong partner on a reflection of the algorithm that he uses to find his partner. So if we think about this, the algorithms become incredibly important in our lives, and so we have to start understanding. We have to start taking a duty of care. We have to start thinking that actually if I want that reflection to be a good reflection of our society, I maybe need to change my behavior. I maybe need to think of things in a different way. And as a result, and I get this sounds a bit patronizing, we have to start thinking of ourselves as digital parents. We have a responsibility, a duty of care to make sure that the algorithms represent and reflect the right kind of attributes of our society, that they represent the best of intent for how we want to engage with our customers, for how we want them to engage with our brands. And then as we get deeper into algorithms, we understand that because they're taught by humans, they acquire all of our human flaws. And we see this time and time again, because actually understanding that we humans are biased, right? There is conscious bias and subconscious bias, and we place both of these in the algorithms that we write, and they come out in the answers that the algorithms provide. And the easiest way I can find to explain this is to use a really trivial example, right? I don't know, do we have any tea lovers in the audience? Right, so I'm not just a tea lover, I'm a tea zealot, right? And I spend a bit of time in North America. I'm also half Canadian. And I'm conflicted, right? Because the British part of me knows that if there was going to be an algorithm written to make tea, I would want a British person to write that algorithm. Because the British algorithm for tea is like this, right? There is a teapot that has been warmed. There are tea bags in the pot that get scorched by boiling water. It's left to stew for a few minutes and then poured into a warm cup with a splash of milk. That is my algorithm for making tea. The Canadian side of me has a very different algorithm for making tea. The North American side, the North American algorithm for making tea is basically there's a cup with lukewarm water and the tea bag and the milk at the same time. That's a cup of tea. Not on my bloody watch, right? And silly example, but if I'm going to consume the product, the answer of the algorithm, don't you think I should know something about the biases of the people who created the algorithm? We need to know this. We need to defend ourselves against this kind of bias. We need to build diverse teams. So the people who pull the algorithms together, they have diversity to fend off the bias. These are all parts of the learning that we're going to as we live in a world that increasingly relies on algorithms. And then the final piece of this is what we choose to do with the answers that they're provided with. And this is something that we have seen year after year. Search is a great example of this. Search is probably the very intersection of our society and technology, because it presents to us lots and lots of challenge. I'll give you some examples. So a couple of years ago in the search industry, we had a really difficult problem because you know fundamentally how search works, right? So as you type in a query, the search engine looks for a pattern. It looks for a relationship of the terms. And if that query is something that's been typed in many, many times, billions of times, millions of times by other people, it thinks, well, there must be a link between those two things. So a few years ago, we woke up, us and Google, to the fact that when I typed in "how do I" to a search engine, one of the suggestions was join ISIS. Now that's quite interesting, isn't it? And it's back to this point about reflection. Now if you're a search engine, is it legal to do that? Well, it is legal to that, morally. Is it right for you to do that? We don't know. We have to talk to the government. What do we do about this thing? So we are going to hit this time and time again, where the algorithms are going to reflect our society in a way that frightens us. And if we're stupid, we'll blame the technology for that reflection. If we're smart, we'll realize that this reflection, it takes no sides, right? It just shows what it's been given. It shows that actually lots of people have typed in that phrase to a search engine, therefore people are thinking about it. So we have to be mindful about what we do with algorithms. We have to get to the place where we can use the benefit that they provide, not to replace us as humans, but to lift our capability. And it should take us to this place, which is not what the media would have us believe, an adversarial battle for the future of humans versus machines. This is not the Terminator, right? We do not live in a world, but the problem is, the only role models we get fed in our society are these adversarial role models. If I say robot, I guarantee you at least one of you is thinking about Arnie and his titanium robot army. If I say artificial intelligence, one of you will be thinking about Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. These are not helpful images for us, because this is not our future. Our future is not to be replaced by the machines. Our future is much more about us working with the machines to achieve greater things than we could do on their own. Because what we really want is we really want human outcomes. And the technology today does not deliver human outcomes. It delivers a mechanical version of what we're looking for. Let me give you an example. This photo was taken back in April. It's actually my son. We're standing on a beach called Long Beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And in order to get my family here, I had to jump through a whole series of technological hoops. I had to do what we all do, right, when we're trying to go on holiday. You have to go through the search engine hoops. So first of all, as a family, you have to decide where we're going to go on holiday. Well, there's an evening that we'll spend in front of a search engine looking up destinations. Brilliant, we're going to go to Vancouver. Now I know I'm going to go to Vancouver. How am I going to get there? Well, there's another evening you're going to spend in front of a search engine looking at airline prices, Skyscanner, all that stuff. Now I know where I'm going to go, how I'm going to get there, where am I going to stay? Another evening, hotel websites, Expedia, you get the point. Each one of those is a technological hoop that I, the human, have to jump through. As a human being, all I want to do, I want to take my family on holiday. That's all I want to do. And what I want is a world where I can say to the system, do you know what, I'd quite like to go to Vancouver in April. And the system knows who I am, knows who my family is, knows where Vancouver is, knows the airlines I like to fly, the places I like to stay, the things I like to do, and on my behalf, negotiates with all of the different agents to bring me back a solution that is human in its intent. This is a world that's just around the corner. This is a world of chatbots. It's the current technological arms race that we're all working on. And you have to be in that game. You have to make sure that as a brand, your agent can talk to my agent, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to do business in the same way that if you weren't on the web 10 years ago, you weren't going to be able to do business. But the best news in all of this is that we humans, we're already enjoying some of the benefits of this. We're changing our behavior. We do it all the time, and we have done for millennia. And there are ripples of this change that come through our society from time to time that we all share. My favorite is the one that's happening right now in our society. It's happening today. And it's about your reaction to this kind of situation when you're out and about. When you're presented with a chip and pin machine, I would bet that your reaction today is different than your reaction probably 6 or 12 months ago. Because 6 or 12 months ago, you would have reacted to that by taking out your card, sticking your card in, and typing 4 digits. Most of us today, I would argue, in this situation, will be reaching forward to tap the card. You even have a little flourish. I mean, I do, right? It's that, you know, right? But actually, it's your reaction to this situation that really counts, right? So as you do that and you've got your little flourish and you're ready and the cashier says, I'm sorry, don't do contactless. Your reaction is really interesting, because I would bet your reaction is a bit like mine, which is a bit like, what? Are you, this is a 21st century, what kind of a world? Oh God, now I'm gonna have to type in 4 digits. Oh, I can't believe it. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have even thought like that. But all that's happened is I've had a good experience. Someone somewhere has put this in place. Contactless payments has been around for over 8 years, but something magical has changed. And now we all expect, who amongst you thinks that 30 quid is not enough? Right? That's not enough. It needs to be more, right? Because I've had a good technological experience, and it's changed my expectations of every other experience that I have. This is the beauty of humankind. Because if you get it right, if the proposition that you offer your customer is right, they will come and ask for more. Here's a lovely example of how this plays out in society. Some of you will have seen this. It happened over the summer. It was on social. But this is a DJ, right? And this is a DJ with a problem. It's a DJ traveling from Glasgow to Sheffield. He gets on the train at Glasgow. First thing he does, oh shit, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and the buffet car's closed. At this point, the train is in motion. But it's okay, because he's like a digital DJ, right? I've got a big social following. I'm gonna ask my posse. There's gonna be someone on the platform between here and Sheffield. Pick me up a sandwich on the platform, bring it to my train, right? Not so much. But then he thinks, hang on a minute, this is a digital world. I live in a world where the train, I have live train times for the train I'm on. Domino's has live pizza delivery. In theory, it should be possible for me to have pizza delivered to a moving train. So he sets about, he does his research. Oh my God, I think I can do it. I'm gonna try for Durham. No, Durham's too soon. I'm gonna try for Darlington. He does it. He phones up Domino's in Darlington. He orders his pizza. He starts to get excited. He gets the text message, his pizza is being cooked. Look how excited he is, right? I'm gonna do it. He gets the text message to say that his pizza has left the building. He's pulling into Darlington. The train starts to slow. The brakes come on. And look at his face. There is audio, but it's okay. You're not missing. It's the sound of a station. If you don't know what that is. There we go. And look how smug he is, right? I would be that smug if I've just had a pizza delivered to a moving train. Now look, the purpose of showing you that story is not just because it's a brilliant story. The purpose of showing you that story is here is a normal, regular, everyday human being. All right, he's a DJ, so not quite, but you get my point. Who thought it was perfectly feasible to have a pizza delivered to a moving train. He had that idea from somewhere, and he had that idea from all of his other experiences in his life, or all of the other things he's done. This is the same of you. It's the same of all of your customers. We're all doing it. We're having good experiences. We then use those to shape our expectations for everything else we do. Your job now, as marketers, as people who care about e-commerce, who care about your customers, is you've got to anticipate where that expectation is. Because if you fall short, your customers will never come back. And all you have to do is you have to think about it in terms of, it's a bit like one of those weird desk toys that your dad used to have, or your weird uncle, right? Because once in a while, when you come up with some good technology, every now and again you need to give your customers a gentle little push. To say, hey, look, this stuff exists. Why don't you give it a try? Contactless payment, maybe it'll be okay. Do you remember the first time you used contactless? I do. It was like, I didn't know whether to get my card out, feel all weird and awkward. It's like my first kiss, do you know what I mean? But now look at me, I've got a little flourish and everything. That was the first push. And then what happens, the beauty of this, of Newton's cradle, is that once it's good, I come back and I push you right back and say, that was brilliant, I want more. But you have to deliver value. You have to think about the value that you're going to give your users, or your consumers. And somewhere in here I have an example of an industry that has yet to discover value. Does anybody know what this is? Yeah, we all know what this is. So this is not just a train ticket, this is my train ticket. And because I am a martyr for all of you, I wanted to experience the digital journey, being a digital rail customer. Let me tell you about what it's like to be a digital rail customer. I'm there, sat at home last night thinking, right, I am not going to go to the ticket office. I'm going to buy my ticket online. I'm going to preach what I talk about. I reach forward to the coffee table. I grab the nearest digital device. It's my phone. My train line even has an app. I'm thinking, this is genius, right? So I'm there. I type in my location. I type in my destination. I type in the date of travel. And it gives me 7 options. And they're all different. And they're all different prices. And they have different rules. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't know. And then I choose one because it's the cheapest. And I think that will do, right? So I choose that. I turn up at the station this morning. I'm feeling pretty cocky. I'm digital all the way. I'm there with my laptop bag, my coffee and my bacon sandwich. I see the ticket machine. I walk up to it. It says, please insert the credit card you used to pay for the ticket last night. That's okay. I have that. I have that. I put the card in. Please type in the 6-digit confirmation number. Shit. And I'm there, my coffee, my bacon sandwich, my bag. I'm like some cack-handed circus juggler, you know what I mean? Spilling it everywhere. I eventually get my phone out, the email number, I type in, I get my ticket, and I get on the train. That's my digital experience. Do you know what? In the corner of the ticket office, there's a lovely, lovely lady. All I have to do is I turn up and I say, excuse me, I'd quite like to travel to London today, please. Could you tell me the best option? She gives me the right ticket. I give her my credit card once, and I take my ticket and I go on my way. If you are enduring your customers in that kind of pain, don't be surprised if they never come back ever, ever again. We have to add value in this. It's the only way this works is if we add value. We have to do this. So what can you do? So as an organization, you have to start to live. If you want to play in the digital world, you have to be in the digital world. You cannot do this unless you are digital by default. That means you have to be in the cloud. That means that all of the way you work has to be in the cloud. Every asset of your business has to be a digital asset, because if it's not, I can't manipulate that in the digital world. Once you're a digital company, then you've got to think about how do we feed the technology, and technology lives on data. Data is the fuel of your future. Your ability to be successful in the future is entirely dictated on your ability to use data as a strategic asset. But the best news about data is increasingly all of the data that surrounds us and has surrounded us is becoming increasingly easy to spot, to use, to manipulate. Does anybody know what this is? Fitness data, right? Yeah, what kind of fitness data is it? It's a very special kind of fitness data. This is the fitness data for my dog, right? Now, I know what you're thinking. He's a lonely guy, too much time on his hands, maybe a bit of spare cash and no friends. But actually, this is a very special dog to me. Her name's Meg. We rescued her 4 months ago. And Meg actually has a bit of a problem. She is a typical border collie. She's a little bit skitty. She doesn't like to leave your side. In fact, she spends most of it staring at me. She thinks I'm a sheep, right? As a result of that, compared to her sister, she doesn't get much exercise, and I worry about that. So what I can do with this data is I can track that. Now, that data always existed. It's just now I can see it. I can use that data to change my behavior. We do this to ourselves. How many of you got some kind of electronic fitness device, right? I have. I've got one that tells me my heart rate, right? And the funny thing about my heart rate is I have pretty much always, give or take more or less, always had a heart rate, right? It's always been there. It's just that this device lets me see it. I can start to correlate it with the other things going on in my life. I can see that every time I meet with my boss, I get stressed. Why is that? Oh my God, I don't know. The point is, every aspect of your business, if you're a digital business, is a piece of data that will light up. It will be there, it will exist. All you have to do is start to find it and connect it, and you will get the insight that you need to be able to make the changes. But data is a very powerful thing, and that power runs two ways. And the only way that we get to where we need to with using that data is we have to be inclusive and respectful. If you're going to use people's data, you should let them know that. You should let them know what you intend to do with it. You should give them the opportunity to opt in or opt out, to be part of that conversation, because this relies on trust. We will get nowhere in the digital economy in a world without trust. We have to make sure that the people who are using our services, who are part of our campaigns, whatever that may be, trust what we're doing and where we're going. And that means we have to think like them. We can't afford to think like ourselves anymore. We can't think about our own companies. We have to spend some time in their shoes. We have to redefine the relationship that we have. We have to think very differently about loyalty. In a digital economy, loyalty is very, very different. How many of you carry a coffee shop loyalty card? How many of you carry more than one coffee shop loyalty card? Right, so loyalty my arse, right? This is about cheap coffee, isn't it? Right? This is the thing, right? Because we can't see that. And here's an example of an industry that doesn't yet understand this, is working on it, but it's the grocery industry. If you're like me and you do your weekly shop, an amazing thing happens to you when you reach the checkout. You hand them one piece of plastic, which is the unique identifier for who you are. Then you hand them the second piece of plastic, which is your entire data history. They then give you a piece of paper, followed by one other piece of paper. And with my retailer, the piece of paper says, "Well done, Dave. We see that you're a loyal customer, and because we love you, we want to tell you that your shop could have been £2.63 cheaper if you'd gone somewhere else, but because we care about you and we think about you often, we will give you that £2.63 back if you come back to us within 7 days and you remember to bring this small piece of paper." Now, I am a gentleman of a certain age. I can barely remember my own name in the morning, never mind to remember to take a small piece of paper back to the grocery store 7 days from which I bought it. If you really cared about me as a customer of yours, you would know. You would just look at my history and you'd say, bloody hell, he's been shopping here for 10 years. He's never going to leave. If we really want to help him, let's just give him the £2.63. That's what we need to do. So this old way of thinking about our customers has to change. Instead, we've got to think about how can we help them? How can we facilitate what they do? And this is the final magic piece about being digital. Does anybody remember these guys? Right? These guys did a cover of a very good song, which is about, it ain't what you do, it's the way what you do it. In a digital economy, what you do, the products and new services you make are irrelevant. They are simply the entry ticket to being in business. What makes a difference about who you are and whether you're going to be successful is how you do it. The products you make, the services you offer are a commodity. I could buy them anywhere else. What will make me come back to you is the service that you give me, the way that you treat me, the way that you stitch together those elements of experience. If you forget that, if you fixate on the product and forget the experience, you're dead. You will not be around in 5 years' time. In the digital world, experience is everything. Because it's all about your purpose. Purpose is really important. We talk about purpose a lot, and people confuse purpose for mission statement. How many of you got a mission statement as a company? Your mission statements are essentially love letters that you write to yourselves, right? I love you. I love the products you make, man. They're going to make a big difference to the world. Nobody cares about your mission statement but you. Your purpose, however, is different. Because your purpose is what you enable your customers to do. Whatever it is that your customers can do as a result of working with you, that's your purpose. That is the thing that defines everything you are, should define everything that you become in a digital sense. Because if you're not delivering something that helps your purpose, you should not be delivering it at all. And if you want to get there, if you want to have that good purpose and you want to deliver transformational experiences to your customers, please understand you can only ever do this if you have access to two other things. Number one, your entire organization needs to be empowered to be transformational, to work in transformational ways, to ask questions, to come up with ideas, to think about new ways of working. And if you're lucky enough to have that culture, you will only ever be successful if those people have access to the tools that enable them to work in transformational ways. You will not be, I promise you, no matter how hard you try as a company or an individual, you are never, ever going to be transformational over email, right? Not even as an attachment. It's just never going to happen. And so what you have to do instead is you've got to focus on the outcome. What is it that you need to do in order to be effective in your work? What is the outcome that you're looking to achieve? Forget the process, look at the outcome. And it's funny, because just as I was coming here today, I walked down from High Street, Kensington. As I'm walking down Kensington High Street, I come across this bloke. He's in the middle of the road. He's putting down white dollops of powder in the middle of Kensington High Street. Council worker, high-vis jacket, full works. Now, I'm a curious guy, right? I'm listening, Jesus, what are you doing? So I'm putting down elephant powder. Elephant powder? What's that for? Well, it keeps the elephants away. But there aren't any elephants in Kensington. He says, yeah, I know. It's good stuff, isn't it? Right? I'm here all week. The point of that joke is your organization, the way you do your business, is full of elephant powder. Shit you do that is no longer relevant, it's redundant in a modern digital society. Your job is to spot that elephant powder. If you want to be successful, you've got to find it, that elephant powder, you've got to root it out, you've got to burn it, rip it, just get rid of it, because it's the stuff that's holding you back. It's in the processes that, well, we've always done it this way. That's going to hold you back. You are never going to live up to the potential of the third computer age if you're constrained by working practices from the Victorian age. So find it and rip it out. And in order to do that, that means you've got to think really differently about your future. And as humans, we find it really hard to think about the future. What we end up doing is the best that we can do is we think that the future is a straight line. And it's a straight line that's extrapolated from where we are today, from where we were yesterday. And it's basically, it's always up and to the right. That's where the future is. Well, the thing is, in a connected digital society, the future is never a straight line. It bounces around like a pinball. Your ability to be successful rests on your ability to anticipate the ricochets of the pinball. And if you're going to do that, we have to think differently about your future. Here's an example of an industry that is not thinking the right way about their future. It's the automotive industry. Does anybody know what this is? This is one of the first ever autonomous vehicles that have been approved for use on UK highways. And I love this thing, right? I love this thing because, number one, it represents just an incredible feat of engineering, of science and technology. Amazing that we could build something like this. Fundamentally brilliant. The second thing I love about this is then you start to look at the reality, you start to look at the numbers. And when you look at the numbers, what you realize is that it won't be until 2040 that 50% of all miles driven will be driven autonomously. That number does not hit 100% until the time we get to 2070. Do you seriously want to tell me that by the time we get to 2070, we will still think the best way to transport human beings around the local environment is inside a tin robotic box on wheels? That cannot be the case. If if Domino's is preparing to deliver pizza to my house using an autonomous drone, then am I not an albeit bigger and slightly heavier and longer pizza? Right? The future of transportation is as likely to be autonomous drones as it is autonomous vehicles, but the automotive industry can't see that because we've always had cars. We had horses and carts before that. We're always going to need cars, you know? We're bloody not, because the future's going to be different. But then also there are other challenges of this thinking. What do you think about the regulators? What do they do with this kind of world? Well, on a good day, the regulators, they regulate for today's world. Typically, they regulate for yesterday's world. Do you know what the first law that the UK has passed for the provision of autonomous vehicles on UK highways? Is that there must be, at all times, a human being inside the vehicle. I don't know, let's call him the driver, right? Whose job it is, this is the madness, right? Whose job it is to monitor the controls. This is the insanity of that kind of thinking. But the real challenge of this kind of thinking is neither of those two things. It's simply this. It's the opportunity cost of that thinking. Because for every second that there's an automotive engineer thinking that the future of transportation is one of these, nobody's building one of these. Or back to that human outcomes thing, this is what we really want. If we all sat down as humans and said, what kind of transportation would you like? I'd say this. But nobody's building this because they're thinking about the future in the wrong way. So, ladies and gentlemen, please get outside of your organization, get outside of your industry, look for the pinball, see it bounce, think about what happens in this connected digital world and see how would that affect what you do. And then finally, to bring this all together, I want you to put technology in the right place. Please understand, technology is the least of your problems. I'm not saying it's not important, but it is the least of all of your problems. I can think of no better way of framing where technology needs to be than to call on a quote from Pablo Picasso, of all people, who in the mid-60s in Paris, he's being interviewed by some art magazine. They ask him this question, why you would ask Pablo Picasso this? I don't know. But they say, hey, Pablo, what do you think about computers? And even though computers in the 1960s of Pablo's Paris are completely different to the computers you guys have in your pockets or on your desk, his answer was genius. Still stands true today. Because he just said, computers are useless. All they can give me is answers. What I need is something that can ask the right questions. And ladies and gentlemen, that's something. It's you. That's your job. That's the one job you've got, is to figure out what is the question that you're trying to answer. Because when you know what that question is, when you're really crisp on what that question is, we all know the technology will make short work of the results. So please understand, this is not the future. This is not my future. This is not the Terminator, and the internet, believe it or not, is not Skynet. I have a very different view of the future, and it's simply this. I want a world where we as human beings, we stand up tall, high and proud, right up on the shoulders of the digital giants that we've created. We use technology to extend our reach as human beings, not to replace us. And what I love about this debate is we've been having it for years. I remember when I was a kid and I was doing my maths exams at school. I was doing my maths O-level, and if you don't know what an O-level is, it's kind of like a GCSE but harder, right? There was a point in our lives where we were debating the role of pocket calculators in the education of our children. As a result of that societal debate, I did my maths O-level with a logbook and a slide rule. Now, the funny thing is, I'm actually a better mathematician with a calculator than I am with a tabulated bit of paper and a slidey bit of plastic. Yes, I need to know the basics of arithmetic, but once I do, the technology fundamentally lifts my capability as a human being. It's the same thing today with all of the things that we do. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that every member of our society is equipped with the basic skills. This is not about whether people can use Word or PowerPoint or even specific coding languages. Those things change over time. This is about basic skills. This is about critical thinking, deep thinking, creative thinking, the ability to stay safe, to communicate, to collaborate. All of these things are the crucial skills. If we make sure that every member of our society has access to these incredible skills, then and only then can we as human beings rise up to all of the potential and live up to everything that technology has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for a fascinating and inspiring presentation there. Have you got time to take a couple of questions?
Absolutely, Adrian, yeah.
Do we have any questions? Lady in the middle over there, I think there's a mic coming to you.
Thank you. Hi Dave, Anna Law from Luminescence. Quite a lot of the people in this room will be part of a marketing team or an agency working obviously with other teams. How can we help the real decision makers, the people that run the businesses, to think differently? Because this is great, like I'm totally on board with you, but how do we bring that to the boardroom and the C-suite?
And it's a brilliant question. And I think the best thing you can do, one of the things I love about my job today is 10 years ago, I'd be sitting here having to convince you that this technology thing was interesting and going to be useful to you. Today, you all know, because whatever you do in your personal lives, you use technology to make it better, whether it's communicating with your friends and family or shopping and all that stuff. That's no different to the people on the board. They're having the same experiences. And what you have to do is you have to say, look, there is a connection here, right? So we can talk about traditional marketing if you like, and I get that that's important, but let's think about the experience that people actually want. And for me, it's about really the boundary between the digital and analog worlds, because I don't think there is a boundary anymore. If I spend a bunch of time on your website the night before I walk in your shop, then you should be able to use that information. I don't want to walk in, I've just given you hours of my time, and you're going to ignore all of that. So the board should get that. And I think the fact that they're consumers today themselves is the key that you use to having that conversation to bring that to light. And what you're looking to them, we all talk about in marketing, we talk about friction. Well, we all get friction. And we know the train ticket example, we all have our own version of that. Use those to drive home. So what could your brand do? And how would you do that? And have you seen this process we have? Well, that causes pain to the customers that we care about. So what could we do to change that? Most of the boards I talk to, they get that, and all I have to do is lean on their personal experience of technology, and it propels them to want to create action. So I think we can escape marketing speak, we can escape the theory, if you like, of marketing and technology, and steep instead in the reality of our everyday experiences. It's the most powerful thing I've found today to drive that conversation. Thanks, Anna, it was a great question.
Hello, I'm from Sweden, and I don't have the Skype translator yet. So
hang on a minute.
I try to speak English. Really brilliant. Are there any people who are political people here? No? And I'm asking, how do you think that the political people, are they on the train as well? Do they understand or what? You told me us about the anonymous vehicle with a a man or
Yeah.
woman inside.
They are, but the challenge that we all have, and this is not something that's unique to the UK, is these are complicated things. And no one party, no one person, and by party I mean partner rather than political party, can solve these problems alone. And we run into these things from time to time. I mean, I got called to the UK government. They have a science and technology committee, and they're writing a paper on artificial intelligence. And what they did is they assembled a panel of industry experts on artificial intelligence and me. Right, so, and these were like professors of AI at all of the best UK universities. Now listen, I'm a blagger, right? I know how it works and I make it up, but I can communicate to people. And they're talking to these regular everyday MPs, and they're talking about Bayesian theory and modeling and all that sort of stuff. That's where I came up with the tea analogy, right? Because the politicians, they need to understand that such that they can make the right decisions. Conversely, what will happen is the technology, and the ISIS example is another great example, where the politicians wake up to that and they think, bloody hell, that's terrible. What do we do? Well, we don't know, and they don't know on their own, but collectively we can figure it out. And what we have to do, I'm asking all of you actually, as a society, is we have to get all the players together. The big technology companies, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they have to be at the table. The governments have to be at the table. You guys have to be at the table as well. You have to be there as brands, as organizations, as marketers, but also as individuals. That if we want to do this, what's the right way for us to do this? How can we get what we need and maintain things that are really important to us, like privacy, like trust? That's the only way that this stuff works out. So I think people understand the journey that we have to go on. Nobody knows how we do it, but we have to come together to figure it out. I think that's the only way I think we can move forward. It's a great question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Titus, and very inspiring, and the liberating potential of the technology is great. But the guy, your DJ, who's travelling first class, the people who brought Take Pizza, maybe were a 0 hours contract on basic wage. 2-3 years down the line, it'll be delivered by drone, and they'll be unemployed. So how do we use that technology? So it's not just those in first class, but those who can't even afford to get on the train.
Yeah, well, you have a sharper eye than me, because I didn't realise that was first class, but that shows you where I sit on the train, I guess. But it's a very good point. And the challenge that we will face by this technology is, I think we're in for a period of disruption to the economy, to the labour market, driven through automation, which is no different to the disruption that we went through 200 years ago in the Industrial Revolution. But organisations are going to be faced with a choice, which is basically based on the labour saving of this technology. Do I take the money and run, or do I invest the saving into growing my business in another way? And what I'm fearful of is that there will be those organizations that take the money and run. They'll say, right, well, we don't need those people anymore. Fine, we'll move off here. They will be the organizations that will fail, because they'll wake up one morning and realize their customers have left them, because their competition, the smart people, will say, if the technology can do this, what is it that the technology can't do that we can redeploy the humans to do? And actually use that technology as that stepping stone to extend the reach of what we do. Creativity is going to be our future. If the future is going to come from innovation, the only way we get innovation is creativity. Creativity is the one thing that technology has yet to do well, or at all, I would argue. So we need to focus getting our humans in the right place, and to make sure that we come out of this adversarial battle and instead use technology to extend our reach rather than to replace us. It will be a difficult period. I bet no bones about it. It's going to be challenging to all of us. But my theory is if we get it right, and if organizations make the right change, then just like the last industrial revolution, we will emerge with a much bigger economy, much better welfare for everybody, if we get it right. That's a great question.
I think we've got time for one last question. The lady in the front here.
Are we due for a step change once quantum computing is AI?
That's the fourth computer age, right there. Quantum will change everything. Quantum computing, I don't know if you're familiar, and I mean, God, I don't understand it enough, but all I know is that there are certain intractable problems in computer science that would take today's computers quite literally 1 billion years to solve. A quantum computer could solve the same problem in 3 weeks. That, I can't even get my head around the kind of scale of change that that's going to be. I think we're maybe 3 or 4 decades away from quantum really being a thing. It exists today in labs, but it's very difficult to replicate, certainly very difficult to scale, but that's the next big thing. And it's also why we have to get the politics of artificial intelligence right to create the right kind of environment for that kind of power.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.